The views and opinions of this podcast do not represent official sources.
Because of the extreme amount of bass, listeners' discretion is advised.
This show has been brought to you in part by Two Black Labs Audio. You are listening to A Week in Geekdom. Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of A Week in Geekdom. I am your host, Giovanni Menendez, and on this episode, we were considering taking a brief hiatus, just a weekly vacation, if you will, but we're committed to bringing you these episodes each week. So here we are, folks, and not a lot to report. I wanted to get this episode out quickly, brief, concise, if you will, and just talk a little bit about all these loose news that we've been hearing all over the internet this past week. Yes, there are a lot of gaming news and all that stuff. There is an upcoming Gamer Life vlog episode coming soon. Speaking of movies, there's this weird rumor that The Flash might show up in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, whatever. I don't know. If he does show up, I just think it'll be like a Easter egg or a nod or like the Awakening and like the Justice League and all that stuff. I don't think he'll be integral to the plot whatsoever. Meanwhile, in comic book news, I really wanted to talk about, I think last week, I skipped the topic on purpose, but last week we learned that, Original Sin isn't even over yet as of this recording, and now we're getting news about Marvel's Axis, the second part, Inversion or something like that. I'm guessing like good guys are not going to be bad guys, and bad guys are going to be good guys. I don't know how that works. All I know is they're bringing in like Apocalypse to the forefront. But the Axis, the whole Axis thing, I have not read whatever Remender's doing with Uncanny Avengers and all those books that relate to that story. I want to read it. I just don't fall to the... I'm not... I know some of our crew, specifically Brian, has fallen victim to the event plague where for the longest of time, I was not buying any comic books, but when I started buying single issues for the very first time, I guess, the first ever event I bought happened to be A vs. X. It was a cool storyline. I just didn't really love it by the end. I admit it's still a good story. It just didn't wow me. And I'll get to that in a minute, the consequences of that story arc. But soon after, we were entranced in all these Marvel events, from Age of Ultron, Infinity, Original Sin, and now Axis is coming up. I don't know if Brian's going to buy it. He's not here right now. But it's a little bit too much, I think. And I know that it's their... Like, events really sell well with mainstream audiences and even with comic book fans, but I don't necessarily think you have to put out like 3 events across each year, if you will. I mean, right now, the last one I bought was A vs. X. I read Age of Ultron, but I didn't buy it, and Infinity was the one I was really pumped about because it really looked like a summer blockbuster. Like, you could see this in a movie theater. I enjoyed that one, but I admit it was a bit lackluster at the end as well. Original Sin is more, so far, it's been good, but in a slow burn kind of way. Some of the issues have been a little flat, others have been really awesome. So I don't know. I don't know what to think of Axis. I recently, actually today, I'm starting to collect all the Uncanny Avengers and all that stuff. And I bought like the first trade, I think. Yeah, the first trade for it. So I'm gonna start reading it and eventually catch up. And it's a little hard not being able to discuss the event as it's happening with everybody. But I'll try to catch up as quickly as possible so that when Access comes out, I'll probably dedicate a whole segment or a whole episode of A Week in Geekdom to it. It'll be the first coverage of an event, I think, with us here. But yeah, event fatigue, that's what I wanted to talk about. I got that and another topic to wrap this up. So yeah, event fatigue. One of the things that people want to... they want in an event, I guess, is seeing all their favorite heroes combat a common threat and work together to resolve a singular goal, I guess. To me, I think events are fun. They shouldn't... They've been overdone. I know DC holds back a little and does, smaller ones with X and Y titles. Marvel recently goes with... 3 events or 2 events per year with everybody involved and dozens of tie-ins, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, then comes the problem that you have series that basically fall prey to tie-in after tie-in after tie-in, like Justice League of America. From its inception, it read like a tie-in book to whatever the hell was happening with Justice League and the events, Trinity War and then Forever Evil. It was really... aggravated me because I liked the team, the original conception of the team, but it just fell victim to all the storylines. And then with Marvel, to me, the last epic event that I went and read that and I was like, wow, that's awesome. Were, now that I think about it, 2 actually. One of them was House of M back in 2005. House of M was actually pretty awesome, and it really defined the Marvel comics up until 2012, if you think about it, and brought a realistic status quo, a realistic change to the status quo up until yesterday, if you will. And the other one I really liked, and it was just for personal reasons, was Secret Invasion, because I'm a fan of the Skrulls and stuff. And that, even though it didn't change much in comparison to nowadays, it did change how you looked at the Marvel Universe way back. So that was pretty cool. You have 2 events that changed the past and another one that changed the future or the present for everybody. Everybody was involved in these 2 storylines. But after all that, then we started getting more and more events, and some of them were really awesome, from Dark Avengers, and then all the stuff with the Heroic Age and Fear Itself. Fear Itself was okay. I liked the idea. I know it fell a little flat, but I liked the concept. But I think, obviously, you want the company to do good, and they're still gonna make events, and people are gonna buy them. But I need some time to breathe between these stories, in my opinion. I can't just keep going from this story to this story to this story, and really, at the end of the day, they don't really change much. Because let's face it, after Avengers vs. X-Men ended, okay, everybody hates Cyclops for what he did to the world, or Professor X and all that stuff. But, yeah, if you read all the books, it's not that drastic. And even with Uncanny Avengers, okay, well, you have an X-Men Avengers team with the majority of the team being Avengers inspired, or Avengers with Avengers. But I don't know. Maybe it's just my rambling. I really think they need to at least just 1 event per year. That's all I'm asking. But seriously, this notion, I already know, and I will try. If you don't want any spoilers for Access, if you've read the press releases, and I know it's protocol and they have to do this to keep the interest going, but I would rather keep the interest in starting one of these events instead of just talking all about it. And by that I mean with Axis, which goes back to the original topic at hand. When the news came out, they basically spoiled what happened in the first act. I don't know if it's going to be like 12 issues, 8 issues, whatever the length of the series is. They spoiled one. I think I wasn't expecting that to happen, and now I know a certain character gets pushed away, defeated, or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm mistaken, and that doesn't happen the way they advertised it. But I don't know, and yeah, I guess that's my PSA for comic book events. I could go into further detail, but I want to hear what you guys think, or I want to read what you guys think. Write to us. Let us know what you think. Comic book event fatigues and all that stuff. Do they bother you? Do you want just one per year or just none for the time being? The greatest thing you could do is put quality over quantity and make some killer storylines with your favorite characters and not have to rely on this shocking quote-unquote status change in X or Y event, and just make solid story arcs with characters. I actually liked how DC went about and did this. And yes, even though we had like the Justice League Dark, I actually liked how the DC went about and did this. And just after the New 52, we never really had an event, a global event, if you will, until Forever Evil. Because yeah, you had the Blight and Trinity War, and now with the weeklies and all that stuff, and whatever is coming up next year on some would say the Crisis Anniversary event. But yeah, I like that you do smaller events for certain titles, and you don't have to drag everybody into this one big epic storyline that immediately after you took a breather and get ready because here's the next one and here's the next one. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and that's what makes money, and they're going to continue doing this. They're going to continue doing this. So if anybody wants to pass this along, I guess the message would be, let's take a breather and just explore these wonderful characters by themselves for at least a year or two, and then bring in some epic story. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Very briefly, I wanted to mention something about the whole casting thing for Arrow and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all these shows that are coming up that are really just fascinating. I would have never have thought we get to see Flash and all these characters on the TV screen. So I just wanted to briefly give my impression on a bunch of the casting choices, if you will. First and foremost, I want to mention that Matt Ward was cast as the Komodo in Season 3 of Arrow. He's a New 52 character. I am not reading Green Arrow. My friend Brian is an avid Green Arrow reader. But I will get on that, and I will try to catch up with that title as well. So it's pretty cool that they're not just relying on pre-New 52 stuff and going with New 52 characters. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., probably one of their best announcements is that Adrianne Palicki is going to be Mockingbird. Mockingbird is a great character, don't get me wrong, but really the show needs a whole bunch of star power, or just, well, character-wise. Because, even though the later half of the first season was excellent and really awesome, the show still has many faults, and I'm still hoping for some big cameos. And if you're going to have Mockingbird in there, please, for the love of God, just establish some kind of relationship with Hawkeye. I mean, you got Samuel L. Jackson to cameo in 2 episodes. I think you can work it out to get Jeremy Renner in there. Maybe? I don't know. So yeah, folks, I wanted to keep this brief and concise. Next episode, we will talk a little bit about multiversity and whatever is up in the world and all the gaming stuff. I skipped out on some gaming news that I wanted to cover, but I'm out of time. And yeah, we will see you on another installment of A Week in Geekdom. I've been your host, Giovanni Menendez, and thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to our videos, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, favorite our pics on Instagram, and yeah, we'll see you next week on another installment of A Week in Geekdom.